what did
Yeah.
you like about FFL versus what you were doing beforehand?
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing that I liked is that I actually made money.
All right. Hello, everybody. Grady Paulson here, the America Agency. So excited to have John Bitinas on with us, joining live from the Northeast. You're in
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire,
Yeah.
just about right up there by Ben and Jerry's, just up there, right? By, I think that's Vermont. But no, so cool to have you on, man. I know we've been working together for a couple years, and we've reconnected recently, and you're just keep selling at a significantly high level. You're focused on building. You got agents getting started every single day, focused on growing an agency to take all these skills you've developed from selling and now put them into recruiting. At the same time, you've done a significantly incredible job of generating referral business. And I would love, that's why I'm so excited to have you on to teach, train, get people to meet you as well. But that's what fantastic. So I'm so happy you're on. If you could do me a favor or do us all a favor, give us some background, tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you found the industry and how you got up started and going, what you were doing before and all. So
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it. I've been in insurance now. This is our 5th year with Family First Life. I was insurance maybe about 10 years ago and was with another company for maybe 8 or 9 months. Didn't really make any money with it. And I was like, didn't really see the value, or it just wasn't a good fit. We'd go to meetings all the time, but there wasn't, it wasn't really set up to build or do anything that really worked for us. I grew up in Massachusetts and I've lived all over the country. My wife and I actually started our insurance agency in Florida, and started it during the pandemic, and then moved back up to New England, where we've actually just been doing absolutely fantastic. I have a background in helping people, mainly in a treatment, drug and alcohol treatment, and worked in public relations for a number of years. So, at the core of what I do is really just helping people. And, getting into this industry, I just really saw such a huge need for increasing financial literacy. And to be able to do that with insurance has just absolutely been fantastic. So yeah, we're in our 5th year. We're absolutely loving it up here. And we have a really strong book of business.
that's awesome. So when you got started, so you started with another company, for commercial sake, what did you like about FFL versus what you were doing beforehand?
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing that I liked is that I actually made money.
Okay.
With the other company, there was just a lot of, jump up on your chair and get really excited about things. But at the end of the day, you couldn't support your family. So, for me here, just being able to go to work, I could work as hard as I want and just really, really kick butt. And that's what, that's really where we just took off with it.
I hear you, man. So if any of those jump on your chair agents are watching, we jump on our chairs here too, but we do very, very well financially because we have leads. We have very high compensation, bonuses, carrier bonuses, internal producer bonuses, manager bonuses, trips, carrier trips, all kinds of things that then that work well in our model. And so the big difference, I always try to help agents like that. If you're paying to be a part of a company, a monthly due, and you're paying to join the company, and you're paying, and the company's trying to sell you leads all the time. Like our leads we can get leads from anywhere. We refer everybody. We have a company that has 29 different leads that they bring through and vet, and they have an incredible refund policy if anything's wrong with the lead. So like, if the company's more focused on you buying leads, do they really care if you sell insurance or just buy leads? And or if they've got you to 20 or 30 or 40% compensation, are they really concerned about you making money, or are they just trying to make money off of you? Because so many companies turn agents into profit centers and actually turning agents into profitable agents. And that's what, so many people see here. So I love that you saw that, and, you were able to make the move towards us. So 100%. Talk about maybe that first year. Like how did the first year go? Were you writing 300,000-400,000 your first year? Or?
Yeah. So first year in this business, I'll tell you, it was one of those years where I really had to make it work. I think in our first year we submitted, about 180 policies, of which maybe about 100 to 100 about 100 of them stuck.
Okay. Ouch.
Yeah. So We learned a lot. We learned a lot about how to do business, how to, and I think that kind of really ties into what we're going to be talking about today. Is about your book of business, really making sure that you're mining your book of business, working it. So we learned a lot in that first year. And, just to kind of give you the biggest change is
Please,
about
yeah.
6 months into the company. I had a lady when we were working in Florida who I came out and signed her up for insurance. We had the appointment. The intention was to get her taken care of. So I came out and she called up her daughter, and her daughter's like, "Mom, I don't want to profit from your death," which was kind of a weird, thing that a kid would say. And being so new, I didn't really know how to handle that. So she's like, "I want to think about it." So I came back home and came to the office, and there was a message. And she's like, "Come out tomorrow. I decided I wanted to get it." So the next day I come out, I sign her up, and she makes her first payment 4 days later on the 14th. And on that day, she got hit by a van and died instantly.
Wow.
And so coming into this business in my first 6 months, it was like, I want to make, I want to do well, want to do well for my family. But it became very real to me. Actually, what we're doing is we're providing a real service to people, and they really need it. And then her daughter called me. We became best friends. We're really good friends now. And, like what we do is really important. And so right out the gate, that kind of changed things for me in terms of what we're providing, how to go about this and how to actually be authentic, when you're working with clients. That's when everything changed. When I kind of went in with that type of mindset, everything, the whole business just completely changed for us.
Got it. So you can have more intentional questions with your clients when you're like, "Listen, this just happened to me.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how important, I said you want to think about it, and listen, the insurance company needs to think about it too. So why don't we submit an application, put in a request for coverage, find if you can even get approved, and then we can have something to actually talk about." So I love that. So yeah, please. I know you've got some things you want to run through. I'd love for you to.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I mean, just to kind of get things started, like for me, going into the business is really mindset. Um, when you're new in the business or when you're coming in, you want to think about like, okay, what am I trying to achieve? Is if it's just to sell policies, that's kind of short-term thinking. I've always kind of approached it from the vantage point of I'm building long-term relationships with the people that I'm working with. My dad, he was an accountant. And when we were younger, growing up, I remember being in the station wagon with him, and I used to watch him knock on doors to drum up business during tax season. And for me, that made a big impression that, we're actually trying to create relationships with the people that we're working with. And when you can do that, and when you can actually build long-term relationships where people trust you, it makes such a huge impact in terms of the book of business that you're building. And that's how you're going to get, people who are going to stick around. They want to work with you because, they know that they can call you and you'll be there, that it's not going to go to some robot or, somewhere else. So as you're coming into this, really making sure that your mindset is thinking about building a career, thinking about the long-term, what you're trying to build here and how important that is just from the get-go.
Now, you've said book of business 4 or 5 times now in the short time we've been on. It seems like that you're very intentional around that thought process. Will you talk more about that? Like what is your belief in that, and what is your goals with that? Where does that come from?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So when you take a look at what's the asset here? As insurance agent, your book of business is technically your asset, especially when you're an agency owner and you own your own company. And so your ability to really protect that, really keep really good track of it, that's what it all comes down to. I write more business from having a really good book of business, keeping track of them, keeping track of, when I signed them up, what health conditions they had, because, maybe down the road, they might be a fit for a better carrier when that health challenge comes off. So it's just a really, really good thing to do to make sure you keep track of all your business. When you write a policy, what's the policy number? What's the carrier? What's the beneficiary? What's their phone number? address, all that information that's going to be pertinent down the road. You want to make sure you keep all of that.
How do you track it all? Is it
basically, yeah, great. Basically, I just use a spreadsheet, and I encourage everybody to do that. Whenever you write any new policy, keep track of it, right, yourself. Don't depend on the carrier to do it for you or anything like that, because again, that's your asset. It's the clients that you are protecting. So you want to make sure you have all that information at hand and can follow up with it quickly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I want to get into referrals when you're ready, but I would love if you talk about, the beginnings, like what kind of leads are you running? Then let's get into some of what you're saying from a sales standpoint.
Yeah.
You said you went out to her house. Now, when you first started, were you going in home?
Yeah. When we first started, we were doing a lot of in-home. In fact, that's pretty much all we were doing. We were in Florida. And that was pretty successful. Kind of hit or miss, no shows, just like everyone dealt with.
For sure.
Now we're predominantly doing, I would say 80% remote and then 20% in-home.
Okay.
So, we're kind of moving more into the remote, which has been fantastic. For me, in terms of, leads, what am I using in the business? What are successful, like program software, all that. I love the CRM. I've honestly just been doing phenomenal with the CRM. I like the beneficiary leads and the 15 questionnaire ones.
Okay.
I work a lot in the New England space. So whenever those become available, I buy them all over New England. I've had a lot of really good luck with them, especially when you can name the beneficiary and they're like, oh yeah, I remember filling that out. For Ringy, what I do things a little bit different. What I'll do is I depend a lot on Ringy. So whenever I get a new batch of leads, I actually just send them a message, a very personalized message, which will go out to that state. And then I'll send them a copy of that state license. And I specifically tell them that I don't want to bother them with a bunch of calls, which is interesting because when you have a brand new person who requests information or requests, they're getting hit all the time. So you kind of change that dynamic a little bit by telling them you don't want to bother them with a bunch of calls. That usually makes them reach out to you. I've just found that to happen. Or they tell me like, you're the only guy who's ever done that before. So I'll let it drip on them for about 5 days and then I call them. Okay. And then on the 5th day, when I call them, I'm like, hey, this is John. You probably got a few messages from me, and they already recognize it because they've already received a bunch of messages.
What do those say?
Ballpark.
I mean, you don't think if you.
Yeah. So it's, it's just like, hey, this is John. I'm just following up with you. I'm your local. I've been assigned as your local agent. I got it here. Yeah, I'm basically your local agent. I can help you with the whole approval process, answer any questions you have, and just make sure you feel comfortable making the decision you're making. Then I have my license, and then I'll have my NPN. And then the follow-up drip is just, hey, it's John again, just reaching out. Let me know if you have time in the next few days. Yeah, just basic stuff, but I keep it really light.
Got it.
Yeah. And then works well.
License in the thread that you kind of keep messaging them.
Yeah. And that's a really successful action because remember, we live in a world today where there's a lot of unfortunate fraud, scam type things. So the more that you can do to validate yourself, the more that you can do to, let people know, you are who you say you are, is really key. So yeah, that's kind of how I do that. Let's see what else here. I use Phone Burner when I do it calls. I love Phone Burner. It's become my CRM. So I keep all of my information there and all my notes on clients. So it's a combination of Ringy and Phone Burner that's been really successful.
Awesome.
And and then when I call them and get them on the line, I just say, hey, I'm the guy who texted you. You probably remember, getting something. And they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I want to do that, or, don't call or whatever. So that's pretty successful. And again, just buy leads every week. Just keep filling, throwing more coal in the fire. That's what it's all about.
Amen. So, okay. Beneficiary leads, 15 lead questionnaires. I've never heard anyone put a drip on before they call. Usually it's strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
But if as you grow your book and get busy, maybe you've got other appointments already booked, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? So kind of getting into this whole conversation is follow-ups and referrals, right? So when people like originate to you, like, hey, I want help. I want, yes, I want it for me. Yes, I want it for my husband or whatever. The way to look at that is they're giving you permission to essentially follow up with them until they buy insurance. Now, what does that look like? That could mean a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 years down the road. I've had clients that I've contacted over 80 times before they bought insurance. You just don't give up because they continue to communicate with you. And if they continue to communicate with you, you have, the responsibility to put that business in place and help them. So that's kind of what we do, and just making sure that we, really, really follow up. And that's another thing too, is when you buy leads, and I know Sean echoes this, you take responsibility for those people. You're the one who's going to actually put the business in. You're the one who's going to actually protect them. So, that's your responsibility. So I take that seriously. Yeah, good. Okay, good. So referrals and follow-ups. So, with Ringy, call me in a week, call me in a month. It's not a good time. Those types of things. Good. They go in the calendar and they do get followed up with. We have tons of people who originate to us. Yeah, I want coverage, or it's just not a good time. But we get so busy that it gets really difficult sometimes for us to keep track of everything, especially when we have new leads coming in and all the follow-ups to do. So what I do is I've gotten really good at just making sure that all my follow-up business is treated like an appointment. So I remind them about that we're going to, talk in a few days. And then the day of, I message them again. And then by then they'll either tell me no or yes, and we'll put the business in place. Some little tricks that I do to help is if their birthday's coming up, I obviously tell them, let's get this in place before your birthday's coming up to lock in the lower price, which is brilliant. So always keep track of people's birthdays. That creates urgency and it shows that you care about them, which is a really smart thing to do. And so follow-ups, always treat your follow-ups like an appointment. Always go from the mindset that that they're going to be your client, and really treat them as such. Whenever I get a client on the phone and I'm selling insurance or going into that and what that actually looks like, I always try to do it where they know right when they speak to me that I'm going to be their agent, right? So what does that look like, or what does that, usually mean? It's like, hey, Miss Jones, thanks for calling. You probably got all the messages from me, and she'll say yes or no or whatever. Once we get into it, I want to know more about her. So being interested in the client, knowing where they're from, how long they've lived there, what they've done for work, like just basic things that you do to build rapport and build trust is I found to be really key. Especially living in New England, just finding points of reality that they have with you, and being interested. So when you have clients and you have agents that you're speaking to and they're new, a lot of people come into the business and they're just thinking about making the sale or whatever, and they're just blinded by that. So if you can just slow down and take the time to actually, learn a little bit more about your client, find out what problem they're trying to resolve through life insurance and make sure that you're handling that, it goes a long, long way. So those are really important. And again, this is going to come back into the referrals and the follow-ups and everything that we have talked about. So once I find out, right, what we're doing, so we'll take final expenses, for example. If they reach into me and they're like, hey, the reason I was looking out is because I want to, make sure that I don't leave a problem behind. Okay, great. Final expense. Good. Do you know if you want to be buried or cremated? And they'll tell me whether it is. And then from that, one, I'll know kind of how much the coverage I need to put in place is going to be. And then two, what I do as a value add, and this is, I think, probably one of my most successful actions in keeping business on the books and with the carriers, is that I explain to them, what life insurance is. I educate them. I take the time and I go, how familiar are you with life insurance? And I let them tell me. And then I say, okay, great. So we're going to do I'll just give you a quick overview. There's basically two types of life insurance. There's temporary and permanent. Temporary, we call term, goes for 10 or 15, 20 years, and then it's over. And then there's permanent. And that's, permanent coverage. Once you're approved, you lock the price in. Usually when you're younger, 25 to 45 or 50, you have a mortgage to protect, you have an income to protect. So you get this large death benefit where term makes more sense. But as we get older, we tend to develop some health challenges, and life insurance companies, can be a little harder on you when you have different health challenges. So whole life is usually a better bet for you. So I move them into the whole life. And then I mentioned this thing about cash value. And maybe as an agent, maybe you mention it, maybe you don't, but here's why you should mention it. I tell them, I go, once you get approved, the insurance company is going to mail you a policy. What you can do then is you can call up your local funeral home, and you can take the policy to the funeral home, and you can use it to lock in the price for your final expenses and leave more money behind for your family. I found this to be extremely successful because not only does it allow you and put in their mind that you're going to be doing business with them, but that you're also going to use the policy for something after than just getting it in place. And honestly, that's been one of the best things we've done. So I follow up with clients after they get approved. I make sure they follow up with the funeral home, set up the appointment, go down there and lock it in. And if you guys aren't doing that with your final expense business, I strongly suggest that you do. You'll have tremendous success with it. And then let me know if you need help with that. I can walk you through all of it. I'd be more than happy to.
It's very creative. That's very creative. So go Google a funeral home near your house and go book an appointment. And so I've yet to do this. Do you book it? Do you lock in a price? Do they make a deposit? Like, how does that
Yeah, no, great question. So what they'll do is they'll set up an appointment and they'll go there. If they're doing cremation, generally up here, cremation is anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 if you're closer to the city. Burials, close to 12 to 20 to 25, depending on where you live. So what they'll do is they'll take their policy, they'll go over with the funeral home, what they're interested in doing. The funeral home will come up with a price for them. And then they'll produce a document that says, on the day of your expiration, so-and-so sons will, require this amount of money from Mrs. Jones. She signs the document and then basically agrees to make the funeral home a beneficiary on the policy, at which point they lock the price in for rates for today. So think of it this way. If you have a person who's young, who's like 55 years old, and they go to a funeral home and they do that, they're actually going to save a lot of money, because if they pass away when they're 80 or 85, the price of burial or cremation is going to be really a lot higher.
Yeah.
So it's just an added value that you can do. And when you do that, it allows you to solidify the business that you've written. You have a third-party contract on that policy, which is just another good way to just keep the business on the books.
John, I've been doing this a while, man. I've never heard that. That was drop. I was going to say draw FH in the chat below if you like the funeral home close, because that's fantastic. That's such a simple way to go. Because I would always go, freewill.com or do your own will.com. Those are actually added benefits, added value ads that you can give to people. But that is such a angle when you say, hey, you can go there, make them the beneficiary, lock in your price. So that, if we want Janie, your daughter, to get as much as possible, what's remaining of this policy, this is how we can ensure that there's going to be no hidden costs down the road.
That's right.
Let's talk about it, get all this resolved, and close the book and put it on the shelf. And then we don't have to talk about it anymore, but we know it's handled. And I'm going to help.
And that's exactly it too, right? So they're calling you to handle their final expenses. And then, you just take an extra step to make sure that it's actually handled.
That's awesome.
So then you as the agent, you look like, you know what you're doing, which is really what we want.
Got it. Well, all right. What other secrets you got for us, John? That was awesome.
All right, good. Thank you. So I think, that's a big one. That's been a really good one that I've used to keep a lot of business on there. I can't overemphasize the fact that educating people is important. We live in a world today where there's a lot of information out there, but especially when you're speaking with older people, they don't really understand a lot about the different, options that are out there. So, talk to them in a way that they'll understand it, and really just check in with them time to time to make sure that they understand what you're saying. Again, take your time, make sure they understand it, go back through it, go over it again, have them give it back to you, whatever you need to do to just make sure that they fully get it. Good. So when I write business and I finish the sale, this is key. I take a screenshot of the approval, and I make sure that the client has my direct mobile number. So I'll send them a screenshot from my mobile number, if it's not the one that I'm calling them on, if I'm using Ring or Phone Burner. And I say, okay, good. This is my direct phone number. I want you to save this number in your phone, get a hold of me day or night. And then I let them know what company we signed them up with, how much coverage it was, how much it is, when it's going to start, when it's going to come out, and then when it's going to come out each month thereafter, what their policy number is. I thank them for trusting me to take care of them. And I let them know to get a hold of me to let me know when their policy comes in. Now, up in New Hampshire, we have, like America, we have policy delivery receipts. So the clients actually have to fill out a form and sign it and date it when their policy arrives, or the business, gets nixed in 45 days. So the clients always, communicate back to me, letting me know when it came in. I walk them through it. But it's good to also just follow up with them and send them that to them after the business is approved. And here's why. It's just another form of validation. So, 5 minutes prior to that, the client just gave you their banking information, all their social, all their medical, and everything like that. So the more that you're able to validate who you are, what you're doing, the more trust you're going to have. And the more trust you have, the more that you can build on that relationship and just keep it going. Because remember, it's all about how you make them feel. Whenever you go to buy something, whenever you go to like a store and you work with a really good salesperson, you remember them because they, just something that they did that just really stuck with you. The people that we're working with and the people that we're trying to help, especially the older generations with final expense, I have found that they're craving human interaction. And so the more that you can, take the time to communicate with them, talk to them, find out how they're doing in life, ask about their kids, stuff like that, the further it goes for you to be able to just really build a really strong relationship with them. So sending the screenshot, the approval, all the information, that's one way, and that's really important. I then send them thank you cards with business cards after the sale is done. I ask them to staple the business card to the policy so that everything is in one place, and that they let their family members know where the policy is. Just important as well.
Good.
And good. What else here? Okay, good. So the other thing, when you close a deal, you want to put it in your spreadsheet, like I was talking about earlier. So it goes in the spreadsheet. I just do a spreadsheet where it's like, okay, this month I've written this much business. The next month there's another tab. And this is so important because of my next thing. Annual reviews.
Okay.
Are where we write so much business.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because when you keep really good notes on clients and you follow up with them, like, okay, Miss Jones had a hip surgery, and her dog passed away or whatever. I don't know. But you keep notes on it. And then when you follow up with her a year later and you're like, hey, how's your niece? How's her baby? Because she was pregnant at the time, like things like that. They remember that. So if you can keep really good notes on your book of business, on your spreadsheet, it's going to make you a lot of money, basically. It's going to pay for itself. So in annual reviews, what I do is I just say, okay, have you had any changes? Have you moved address? Any updates in your new phone numbers? Are you still living at blah, blah, blah? Are you and Mr. Jones still together? Whatever. And anything just to make sure that that things are the way they are. And then you ask them, you go, okay, good. It's been a year. Is there anything I can do to help you put you in a better position with your insurance? And just listen to them, what they say. And then from that, whatever they tell you, just kind of like parrot it back to them. Okay, good. It sounds like things are going really well. We put you in a good position. Or, now that you've gotten comfortable with the payment, you want to maybe look at putting a little bit more coverage in place. Great. Let's take a look at it. Have you had any changes in your health? And then if they say no, you can roll right into a brand new application. You already have all their information in your book of business right there. So you don't have to re-ask it. You just basically, you want to use the same beneficiaries. Great. And it's simple. And then you can also ask for referrals, and you should ask for referrals when you close business. When you close a brand new policy, I always say, great. Who else do you know who could benefit from this? Who else do you know who could benefit from my services? Now that I took care of you, who else do you know who would, just basically benefit from my services and needs an agent like, who works for you. That's the other thing that I've done, and I kind of skipped over that a little bit. When I talk to clients and I'm getting to know them, I tell them that, I'm going to be the guy that's going to work with them. So if anything happens to them, I'm going to be the one that makes sure that their family gets taken care of. That if they need help with anything, that they're going to reach out to me directly. I'm not just going to sign them up and never talk to them again. That makes clients feel really good because they know that they're working with a real person and they're working with the actual person who's going to be helping them. And, if you guys aren't doing that now with your clients, or you're just, giving them the 800 number for the company and then just sort stuff out, I'm telling you, it's a lot of work, administrative stuff. It's a lot of work calling the carriers at 9 o'clock every morning and waiting on hold and all that. But when you do it and you actually take care of your clients when they are your clients, like, they care a lot about that, and they will refer more people to you because they know that you're the guy who's taking care of them. Make sense?
Yeah. Can you dig into referrals more? I mean, those are great lines. Who else do you know? Who else do you know that could benefit from this? Who else do you know that needs an agent that'll work for you? Who else to know that'll benefit from my services? Like,
So what I do,
you check, the Amazon gift card, let's hammer through some.
John, right? So I don't do any, I don't give anything away, or I don't, I just try to be authentic with my clients. The biggest thing that I do is every holiday, I text all my clients. So whether it's like New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day, I text them all and I just check in with them and I'm like, hey, how you doing? Do you guys need anything? Do you know anyone who could benefit? And it takes a few hours to go through your entire book of business, but if you've got them saved in your phone, you'll be fine. I do that. I get a lot of business from that.
Okay.
Just going through the manual action of taking the time to text all your clients individually. You create a message, basically change the name and just copy and paste it and go.
Yeah.
We get a lot of follow-up that way. If I see a potential problem with a client, for example, I do keep track of my carriers. So if I see a potential problem with a client that I have, and I see that maybe they're in a bad position with a carrier, or something changed, a carrier is now offering something new and it's a better opportunity for them, then I will look to put them into a better position, because like anybody who's working for you, you want to make sure that you're always in the best position possible. So I'll do that a lot. Back in October and November of last year, it was 2 months. I wrote about $74,000 worth of business in the 2 months. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I just had clients who I've been working with for a long time and servicing for a long time. And they just, something came together where their kids needed coverage. They needed to add more coverage. We didn't like the carrier they were with. So there was just all this culmination of things that had come together, and it was absolutely amazing. But I didn't buy any leads in any of those months, and I ended up, adding $74,000 worth of business. So it works, and the only reason that it did work is because I kept track of my business. I kept track of my policies, who they are. I followed up with them, and I kept really good notes. So if you can do that, like I said, it'll pay a lot. And younger people too. Like when you're doing term policies or you're working with younger people, we live in an IUL age that it's unbelievable with IULs today. What we can do with them, with Americo, with NLG, with all the different partners that we have, it's absolutely phenomenal. So to be able to communicate, this opportunity, the blend of both term and whole life, and how, IULs actually make sense for a lot of people. It's just incredible. So I've also been helping a lot of people who I've had in my book of business back in 2020, 2021, where I'll actually move them into an IUL if they'll actually qualify for it.
Got it.
Because the carriers offer it now. So I do a lot of that. But mainly it's a lot of it just comes down to continuing to follow up with them. So constantly following up with them. Talk to your clients every quarter. The ones that are existing, that have been paying, haven't had any issues with their payments. Just check in with them. Hey, how you doing? Do you need to make any changes? Who do you know who I could talk to, who I could help, who could benefit from my services? It's the best way to go. And you'll trust me, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Doing annual reviews, you will write a lot of business. So make sure that you don't neglect that. Super important.
The great line is, your clients are your competition's best prospects. So if you're not talking to your clients, someone else potentially is. And this much, sitting down and texting for a few hours sounds annoying to some people, but then for you, you go, this is how I make money.
Yeah.
Because if I'm in Bob's or Betty's text thread 6 times a year, and it says happy Memorial Day, happy Labor Day, happy Thanksgiving, appreciate you as clients, let me know if anything has changed. You now have 200 or 300 or 400 people that are getting reminded that you're a great agent. And as they interact on a daily basis, someone mentions life insurance, or, oh, my niece is having a baby, something. Oh, you bought a new home. All these now triggers are being presented to them to go, hey, you got to talk to my insurance guy. He's fantastic, right? Like all of us have someone who's fantastic. My cleaning lady, she's okay. My pool guy, he's all right. The guy that does my plumber, fantastic. You know what I mean? Like, you've all got a fantastic guy in your life that, I would refer this guy unlimited amount of business. And that becomes you in all these people's worlds. So I love that angle, John, that is the above average approach, which is why you have above average production. You have 90% persistency. You're getting referrals. So, but to dig into referrals a little bit more, because I'm gonna squeeze you on this, is so you get a new lead, you do the 5 text drip. Very professional. You get a hold of her on the 5th day. Present options, she buys, perfect. We're closing the call. She says she's got her daughter Janie, her son Steve, and her girlfriend Beatrice, Beatrice, of course, who they could possibly use your services.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. You give me their number, I'll call. Like, what are you saying to her to give her confidence that you're not, she's had a great experience with you, obviously, but what are you saying to her to prepare for that call? And then when you call Steve, what do you say to Steve? Like, so let's really, tighten down.
Break it down. So number one, when I find out what we're doing, when we're setting up the insurance, and, if we're going to do final expense or term, if it's a beneficiary lead, I'm going to say, okay, you have Gabriel is going to be your beneficiary. Okay, good. Is that your daughter? Okay, good. Are they married? You get interested in them, ask them questions about that person. Okay, good. Do you know if they have any life insurance? I'm asking them right even before we've even written the business.
Got it.
Just to kind of get a sense of things and letting them know that, I care, genuinely care. Super important. So right off the bat, when you're doing the beneficiary part of the application, it's a great time to ask about the people that are the beneficiaries. Ask for their phone numbers and say, hey, do they need coverage? Or would it be okay if I reached out to them, do you think? Or could you give me an introduction to them? Right. So never neglect an opportunity like that when you have more people in front of you that are basically free leads. So I do that. I do that. I don't even think about it. And the other thing is that when we work remotely, right, we do a lot of remote business. When I lived in Florida, I had the consideration that I needed to only service Florida clients, or I wouldn't have the same, I wouldn't have the same connection if I was trying to reach people in New England or Texas or Tennessee, because they were really far away. I don't know if you ever ran into that, but I'm sure some agents run into that they can only work the state they live in. It's like a mindset thing.
Sure.
Well, when you follow up with people constantly and you text them constantly, you're in their life, right? You're on their radar, and you're constantly, they're thinking about you. They're going to think about you when it comes to insurance, because you're constantly reminding them of that. So that when people do come into their life, you are going to be the first one they think about, and they're going to send them to you. I have a guy, I'll be doing an annuity this weekend, and it's from his sister, from a referral. Just stuff like that. Just because she's like, yeah, you got to talk to this guy. He's the best. But when you're doing the deal and you're in the middle of the deal, definitely when you're doing the beneficiary, get all that information, ask the probing questions. Do you know if they have coverage? Good. If they do, or if they don't, are we looking to just get coverage for you, or is it just for you and your husband? Do your kids have coverage? How old are they? And that kind of a thing. What's your budget? Okay, well, if we could fit this in, that kind of a thing. Those are the ways that we find new business. Obviously, we ask the magic question: what else do you have that acts like life insurance? And there's annuities there. But there's also just a lot of different opportunities of who else do you know? Do you know anybody at your church? Would it be okay if I send you some extra business cards? Could you hand them out? That works really well too. Yeah. Those are basically the actions.
When you call Gabriel, what do you say to Gabriel?
Yeah, say, hey, Gabriel.
Like, I just took care of your mom. Say it's oh, my buddy Steve, right? How are you approaching Steve?
Yeah, great. So I'd be like, hey, Steve, how you doing? This is John. I just took care of your dad, Joe. We got some coverage in place for you. He probably reached out to you. Maybe he didn't. I understand you live in one state over from me. I just wanted to reach out to you to let you know that we got him protected, so you don't have to worry about anything regarding his final expenses. He mentioned to me that you currently don't have any coverage and he'd like you to take a look at it. I have some openings later today, maybe tomorrow, if it works better for you, depending on your schedule. We could go over it and just have an initial conversation. What do you say?
Just casual.
Yeah, just keep it super cash, man. And I think a lot more people respond better to that, because you're not like trying to hit them or.
Yeah.
And if I can tell anybody anything, it's just be authentic. Like be yourself. Don't try to be someone else. Just be yourself. Be a person of integrity. Write business with ethics and integrity, and just make sure that treat your clients the way you would want to treat your family. Put them in that kind of position where they have that connection with you, and be very transparent with them and be like, if you don't qualify for this, here's why. And but we're going to get you covered, and let them know that you're not going to leave them until they get approved. And when you do that, over time, and it becomes repetitious, success leaves clues. And so you're going to write more business. You're going to write more good business. And just to even touch base on that, to protect your book of business, and this is going to sound crazy, but I literally turn people down. Because there's just things about them or things that they're presenting to me that make me just not want to work with them, or I don't want to let them into my business.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I see the potential liability in doing so. So, I stand as a guard at the gate of who I let in, who I approve, who I choose to work with. And I think that's really important and a really adult thing to do when you're looking at long-term business, because you want to protect what you're building. Amen. So that's been a really successful action as well. Also on referrals, and just to touch base on this too, is in this line of work, we get chargebacks. So people, they don't stick with you, or it's a bad time for them to have the coverage or whatever, or they just pulled the trigger too soon. Whenever it comes to chargebacks for me, I always make sure that I follow up with them. And here's why. If you've already closed them, they already understand the process of getting approved. They already have worked with you. You've already built rapport with them. It's just a matter of following up with them and finding the right time to put that book back on the business, or business back on the book. I probably sign up about 70% of the people who charge back just from doing that.
Got it. That's huge.
Yeah. So that's another, just see, there's all these avenues, right, to write
Yeah.
business. If you just stay organized, if you just keep track of, the communications from Ringy, from the messages that come in, from the text messages, knowing where families are, what they're dealing with, keep track of things in your calendar, just like run it like a legitimate business, and you'll do quite well.
Chargeback comes in, you see that minus, you go, oh, what happened? What happened, Betty? Are you texting? You're calling? What are you saying? She's like, I can't do it right now. Do you put it in a follow-up, call her back in 3 months? Hey,
Yeah.
Betty.
Yeah. Great question. So what I'll do is I first of all, I validate whatever she's got going on. So if she's like, just not a good time, I realize I did this too early. You're like, Betty, I totally got it. And it's totally fine. It's no problem at all. Here's what we'll do. Let's follow up. If I followed up within June, do you think you'd be in a better financial position? She's like, yes, we'll have our taxes paid, blah, 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 blah. Thing will be paid off. Okay, perfect. So Betty then gets put in the calendar for June, and I've left it open. See, when people charge back and you kind of like be conflictive with them, like, Betty, why'd you quit? That kind of thing. If you hit them on it, they're not going to want to work with you. But if you make it okay for them to come back to you and that you still want to work with them, the door's always open. So
that's huge.
I found that to be a really good policy.
Drop a 70% in the chat below, or just a 70 because the percent's hard to find on the keyboard. But drop a 70 because that's huge. 70% he's getting back. John, as we close out, man, what is some final advice you've got to agents out there that are looking at us, that are with us and not hitting at the level you are? Some final rally cry, inspirational words
Awesome.
for us all.
I think just the biggest thing you can do is just really take care of your existing clients and make sure that, if you have an issue with them, you're handling it. If they've missed a payment, like, confront that. Don't depend on them to take care of it. Like, be proactive, be 100% proactive, always be, upfront, confront things and confront problems as they come up, because ultimately, like, you work for them, right? And if you really adopt that mindset that you work for them, that, because look at it, like, your financial freedom, the quality of the life that you have depends on your clients continuing to do what they do. So the better that you serve them, the more willing they're going to be to send more people to you, refer people to you. So the better you take care of what you're nurturing, and you make sure you're there and you're working it every day and you're in communication with them always, it'll always come back to you. So don't neglect the business you've written. If you haven't done this yet, go back and just start organizing and create your book of business, because it'll make you a tremendous amount. And then lastly, just make sure you operate as an agent with integrity, because at the end of the day, you want to write good business, you want to build a solid foundation, and you want to help just as many people as you can. And when you do that, you absolutely will, and you'll feel good about it. And that's what it's all about.
I love it, man. Track birthdays. Let's get this in place before the price goes up. What problem are we trying to solve? The funeral home close. Referrals like crazy. John, this was an awesome training, man. I really appreciate you and appreciate the time. Looking forward to continue to crush it here now and in the future, man. Thank you,
Grady. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to building a team, helping more agents get off the ground and going for Hall of Fame this year. Really excited.
Love it. It's already done, man. It's already done.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Appreciate you. Talk more soon. Bye for now.
Okay. Thanks.